Good evening. Welcome to our first meeting of April 2026. It is the 6th of April tonight. It is a regular meeting of the Moscow City Council. Please stand if you're able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So we've got two proclamations tonight. Our first one is the Fair Housing Proclamation. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 whereases on that one. And then we've got a second one for Arbor Day. Here we go. Whereas April 2026 marks the 58th anniversary of the passage of the Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, commonly known as the Federal Fair Housing Act. And whereas discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, gender, or national origin in the sale, rental, leasing, or financing or of housing or land to be used for construction of housing or in the provision of brokerage services is prohibited by the Title VIII of the 1968 Civil Rights Act, the Federal Fair Housing Law, and the Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 expands coverage to include disabled persons and families with children. And whereas the Idaho Human Rights Commission Act has prohibited discrimination in housing since 1969, and whereas the city has determined that discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and/or gender identity and expression shall be prohibited pursuant to Moscow City Code Title 10, Chapter 19, in order to help ensure that all persons are afforded equal opportunities in housing. And whereas equal opportunity for all, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, or sexual orientation and/or gender identity or expression is a fundamental goal of our city. And whereas equal access to housing is an important component of this goal, as fundamental as the right to equal education and employment. And whereas housing is a critical component of family and community health and stability. And whereas housing choice impacts our children's access to education, our ability to seek and retain employment options, the cultural benefits we enjoy, the extent of our exposure to crime and drugs, and the quality of health care we receive in emergencies. And whereas the laws of this nation and our state seek to ensure such equality of choice for all transactions involving housing. And whereas ongoing education, outreach, and monitoring are key to raising awareness of fair housing principles, practices, rights, and responsibilities. And whereas the mission of the city's Fair and Affordable Housing Commission includes researching, analyzing, and recommending to the mayor and city council ways in which the city may further fair housing practices. And whereas among the duties of the Fair and Affordable Housing Commission are to review the city code analysis and impediments to fair housing and action plan each year and to recommend changes as it may deem necessary. And whereas only through continued cooperation, commitment, and support of all Idahoans can barriers to fair housing be removed. Now, therefore, I, Haley Lewis, Mayor for the City of Moscow, do hereby proclaim April 2026 to be Fair Housing Month in the City of Moscow, and I urge all citizens to support programs and policies that prevent or eliminate discriminatory housing practices.
Thank you.
We love it. Our second one is an Arbor Day proclamation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 whereas.
Cruising on that one.
Arbor Day proclamation. Whereas in 1872, Julius Sterling Morton, who would become Secretary of Agriculture under President Grover Cleveland, proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting trees. And whereas the resulting holiday, Arbor Day, was first observed in that state with the planting of more than 1 million trees. And whereas Arbor Day is now recognized throughout the nation and the world, reminding us that one person's initiative can make a lasting and meaningful difference. And whereas the City of Moscow and the Moscow Tree Commission are committed to a community forestry program that supports a safe, healthy, and attractive urban forest. And whereas when properly selected, planted in the right places, and tended appropriately, trees increase property values, add beauty, enhance economic vitality of business districts, cut heating and cooling costs, and provide buffers from traffic. And whereas trees intercept stormwater, reduce runoff and erosion, clean air and water, produce oxygen, slow climate change by absorbing carbon dioxide, promote pollinators, provide habitat for wildlife, and moderate air temperature. And whereas a healthy urban forest can bring a sense of vibrancy or respite, adventure or calm, escape or contentment, and connection to wild nature amidst asphalt and concrete. And whereas Arbor Day reminds us of the timeless observation by its founder, J. Sterling Morton, that each generation takes the earth as trustees. And this is where you get calendars out, everybody. Whereas to celebrate Arbor Day in Moscow, the City of Moscow and the Moscow Tree Commission have partnered with the University of Idaho to plant a cascara tree at the Guy Wicksfield Student Pollinator Garden on April 24th, 2026 from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. with the Arbor Day ceremony beginning at 11:30 a.m. Now, therefore, I, Haley Lewis, Mayor for the City of Moscow, do hereby proclaim April 24th of 2026 as Arbor Day in the City of Moscow, and I urge all citizens to support the planting of trees and to promote the well-being of this and future generations. And I have a fun one for does David Trump want to come and collect our 2026 proclamation? Do we have to do a photo, Lori? Okay. We're gonna go with a handoff and a high five, and if there's anything else, well, I guess one of that and a high five.
Thank you. And a high five.
High five. And anything else you want to share about Arbor Day with us?
Oh, thank you, Mayor Lewis, members of council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak about Arbor Day. So coming right around the corner again, Friday, April 24th from 11 to 12:30. Just to let everybody know, we are planting a cascara tree after the ceremony. There will be parking available. We are planting the tree at the Guy Wicks Student Pollinator Garden, which is west of the Recreation Center, west of Stadium Drive along the pathway, kind of where the pathway and Stadium Drive intersect. And so there will be parking available in lot 62 on the university campus for that as well. So thank you, and hopefully see everybody there. I'd like to take this opportunity, of course, to invite our city council and our members of the public to come and enjoy the celebration. So thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, next on our agenda is the consent agenda. So there are a handful of items that are considered routine in nature. They have been previously reviewed by at least half of city council at either the Public Works and Finance meeting or the administrative meeting. And so half the body meets on the second or fourth Monday at 4 p.m. Those meetings are recorded and on our YouTube channel. And there's usually some additional discussion there, but they tend to be more routine contract discussions or bid evaluations of things that we find really interesting. I hope I find them very interesting, but don't always warrant a second prime time discussion at 7 p.m. when we've got other beefier things on the agenda or tofu-y things on the agenda for our veg or vegan friends. So we have 5 items on the consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion if anyone's feeling moved one way or the other. Yes.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Motion from Sandra. Do I have a second? Second from Sage. Beautiful. We'll go down the line. Sandra,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Evan,
Aye.
Bryce,
Aye.
and Sage.
Aye.
Beautiful. Thank you. The consent agenda is approved as presented. Next on the regular agenda, we have mayoral appointments. I have 3 that I would like to share with you all. And if the 3 are here and wanted to come say hi, no pressure. But so I have 2 for the 2 vacancies on the Historic Preservation Commission. The first is for Lorraine Tamara, I think, Tamara. Her term would expire on 12/31/2026. The second vacancy on the Historic Preservation Commission, I'm proposing Ann Marshall fill with a term expiration of 12/31/2028. And then the third I have before you is for Courtney Jensen to fill a vacancy on the Human Rights Commission expiring 12/31/2026.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move we approve all your appointees.
Second.
Motion from Sandra, second from Bryce. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to mention, I did review the applicants and found them well-suited and well-qualified for the
Great.
position. So
Love it.
thanks for applying.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
I know that on historic preservation, we've been really waiting for those folks to come up and waiting for the applications to come through. We've already had one person that's come to a couple meetings saying, I don't know. I'm like, it's going to happen.
It's official.
So I'm really tickled that it's happening. Thanks.
Yes. Yes. I love this part. This is my fault for moving at the speed of government.
That's all right.
And I own it in this case. So, okay. If we're ready for a vote, I've got Evan,
Aye.
Sage,
Aye.
Bryce,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
and Scott.
Aye.
Beautiful. Are Lorraine and or Courtney here? Does anyone want to come say hi, give us a wave? No pressure. If you want to introduce yourself, you can, or you can just give a wave and we'll see you at the next meeting. There's no pressure. Go.
Yeah.
You gotta come up.
We will make you come to the mic. I'm so sorry, Courtney. I know.
We suckered you into it by saying, just say out your name. And now
Yeah.
we're making you come up.
Officially on record, but yes, Courtney, tell us about yourself as much as you'd like to share, and we look forward to having you on HRC.
Hello, everyone. My name's Courtney Jensen. I'm excited to be serving on the Human Rights Commission. I'm looking forward to working with the commission and the task force to make sure that universal human rights are promoted and celebrated for everyone in Moscow.
Ruby, thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it. Are Lorraine or Ann here? Okay, groovy. We'll catch you at the next meeting. Next on our agenda, we have public comment. So every meeting, we set aside 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes for members of the public to come and share their thoughts on mic with us to be entered into the record. And for us, if it's something that we need to be made aware of or followed up on, we'll do our best. For up to 3, we set aside 15 minutes, up to 5 people, 3-minute increments. I have a timer. And it just needs to be anything's fair game so long as it is not on the agenda tonight or pending before planning and zoning or the Board of Adjustment, because oftentimes, actually nearly every time, anything between those two bodies are considered quasi-judicial. And so we want to make sure everyone has great due process. But if anyone would like to come to the mic, you just have to introduce yourself, where you reside and what's on your mind. And I'll set a timer for 3 minutes. No pressure. Hello, even though I know Joanne. Joanne, tell us your name and where you live and what's on your
Sure.
mind.
I'm Joanne Manita. I live 203 South Howard, which is 1 block from East City Park. And I consider myself a stakeholder in that park because I go there almost every day and I go to every event almost that takes place there. So as you know, I've been really concerned from the very beginning about the building of the new stage. And last week, thanks to David Schott, I got a look at the updated 60% plan. And I was really very pleased to see that some of the suggestions that have been made have been incorporated in the plan. There's some wood around the back of the frieze of the stage. There are 2 steps so people, especially children, can get up and down. And the mural, instead of being in the back, is going to be around the sides. So all those things will make the stage fit the park and fit the people, which is what we've been bothering you all about for 2-3 years now. There's still one thing, though, and that is, why are we having a paved dance area? From the beginning, people have said, we don't want any unnecessary paving and we want more grass. And I know people have said it because I said it. I wrote it on one of my little cards. And so when we brought this up, it was dismissed by saying, well, it rains a lot and we can't have grass in front of the stage. Well, it rains a lot, sadly, during Ren Fair. In fact, I have a pair of shoes I wear especially for Ren Fair. But that's for 40 years, when it rains, they put down some straw and people dance. The rest of the summer, okay, most of May, June, July, August, and most of September, it's dry. So why are we paving this big area, making it harder to dance and making it less fitting in the environment just for those 2 or 3 days in May? I would like, and I don't know how to, I finally met, now I can't remember, Ted Warnick, and at a meeting, but I don't know how to contact him with my suggestion. So I'm passing it on to you, hoping that you would, because I think you'll find that the people who are really interested in the stage would be very grateful, and especially the children who always play right near the stage. So that's my comment of today. So I hope you'll take it to heart and do something with it, because 60% is a little more than half. So we're getting close, and now's the time to make any other changes.
Thanks, Joanne.
Questions?
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you. I see you nodding and smiling. I like that.
Okay, any other takers? We've got time for about 4 more folks who, if anyone would like to come and share remarks. Going once, going twice. Okay, 2 logistical things I'll mention about the stage. So yes, we're approaching 60%. The timeline is for July, I think early summer. We're hearing that it would come back before council. Again, this is not different than a bridge bid, a city shop bid. We are following the exact same other infrastructure project call and response, process, so to speak. I know as someone who is very passionate about the ECD Park stage, I get it. And those pieces of feedback are being heard. There was we'll get there. Again, there will be opportunity for public comment at this point in a design process. The kind of open house piece has already happened when the bathroom was cited and the other park improvements were had. So taking it to heart. And I think early summer is when we're going to hear some additional presentations from the design agency back to council for review and additional feedback. So next on our agenda is the Whitcomb AI call taking presentation with Wendy Barrett and Chief Dollinger. Hi, Chief. Hi, Wendy. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as you folks know, we have partnered with Whitcomb Regional Dispatch Center for many years now to provide our public safety and dispatch services. And so we wanted to come before you tonight. We've had a little bit of a new addition, I guess, to the way they do business. I'm gonna let them explain it, but they're implementing some AI-driven call taking stuff that's way over my head. So that's why I have Wendy Barrett here as the executive director of Whitcomb, and I've got Brendan McNanny, who's their IT manager. So I'm going to turn it over to them so they can let you folks know what the new thing is.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us. Brendan will probably do most of the talking, but and I apologize, I have a cold, so another reason for him to do most of the talking. We are working on implementing Aurelian. It's AI non-emergency call handling. Our dispatchers handle approximately 70% of the calls that they handle are non-emergencies, like administrative things that they somebody wants to pay a parking ticket, somebody needs to be transferred here, somebody needs this, they need that. They're not 911 emergencies. So with this software that's been implemented now, I believe we're up to it's like 17 counties in Washington, I think. It's really taken on. It's just going to give the dispatchers more time to take a breath between their calls, between 911 calls, between radio traffic. They can focus on their 911 calls and radio traffic better, provide better customer service to the citizens who are calling on the non-emergency lines. Because obviously 911 lines and radio traffic take priority. An example I have is a couple months ago, there was only 3 of us dispatching. I still dispatch, even though I'm the director, just because we're short-staffed. And Brendan actually does too, as the IT manager, because he's the former dispatcher. But somebody was out sick, and I think we had somebody on vacation, so there was 3 of us during the day, during the week. And we had 4 injury accidents in one city, and then 1 injury accident in another city. So you can imagine all the fire, EMS, law enforcement that were having to go to all those events. Plus we had business lines ringing. And at one point we had 7 business lines on hold because we couldn't process them, because all the 911s and the emergencies take priority. So with Aurelian, nobody gets put on hold ever. There's an unlimited amount of calls that it can handle. It's very customizable. We are working on, we've gone live for like 2 and 4 hour timeframes in the last couple weeks, 4 times. 4 times. Just work out the kinks. Our project managers are there online with us, answering questions. The dispatchers are able to provide feedback on every call that they take, what needs tweaked, what went well. And we're still working out some kinks. We're not going live yet. We're going to have some more testing dates in the near future, but that's the really quick rundown of what this is. We have 13 fully trained dispatchers. We have 2 trainees, dispatch trainees. We should have 20. we're making progress, but it's very, very slow. And it's from the time somebody applies and tests and interviews, their background check, and training, it's about a year before somebody is ready to go on their own. Unfortunately, we've tried all different things, all different testing methods, training methods. Nothing seems to speed up the training process. It's a lot. So if just using this solution to help take off some of the stress and hopefully keep our people, and so we can continue to build our employees and and keep our staffing levels up where we need them. We've got a great group, really great group, and we don't want to lose anybody. But shift work isn't for everybody, and a lot of times there's a lot of factors. It can be whether it's shift work, or sometimes there's no perfect test to test for a dispatcher. And last year, unfortunately, we lost 3 trainees, and all 3 of them were about 5 to 6 months in. But unfortunately, a lot of times it's you don't know until you get that far. Can they do everything? Can they hear the radio while they're on 911? And can they hear their police radio and fire radio? And sometimes it's multiple fire radios. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to give a little kind of background of why we're doing it, and our staffing, and what questions
Thank
do
you.
have?
And so if it's all right, crew, can you help us understand how AI or your team knows when it's an emergency versus non-emergency? It seems like that, if that's like the first
Yeah.
fork in the decision tree. is there an
Absolutely.
easy
So,
answer?
yeah, so to give you a little bit of background, before we decided to take on any sort of AI non-emergency call taking software, made sure to do our research, see what was out there. We looked at about 3 different software that was available. Aurelian was the only one that was fully fledged, and they were actually utilizing. We took me, Wendy, one of the dispatch supervisors, one of the dispatchers as well, up to Moses Lake, Mac 911, where they had been using the software for about 3 years. And we got a basically live in-person overview of how it works. We had a discussion with the director up there and how it was working for them, how they implemented it, how they approached the community, and how that was going. We also had some candid discussions with some of the dispatchers there and what their thoughts and opinions were on it. Pretty much every single one of them said that when it's not available or turned off for any particular reason,
You can tell.
it's stressful. The phones start ringing, and it's not, they don't get that break. They don't get that mental debrief after taking a 911 call or dealing with, some maybe stressful radio traffic. So it allows them that downtime to recover and provide better service when they are talking to someone within the community that has something to report. As far as the decision tree that you asked, again, Aurelian has been doing this for about 4 years in the industry, and that was one of the things that they decided early on was they were never going to touch an emergency call, and they were never going to touch something that was going to be requiring any sort of emotional intelligence, which only a human can understand. So, like Wendy mentioned, it's very customizable for us. We can choose what types of calls that we want it to handle. We can also choose what type of information that it gathers. It's a very conversational AI. I don't know if anybody has used ChatGPT or any of the other models that are out there, but you can just have a discussion with it. So it makes it really easy. A lot of people don't even realize that they're talking to AI. One of the things that you mentioned was the emergency. So one of the things that they brought up in the early stages with us was they had a 911 call that came in that somebody said they were burning. We live in an agricultural region where farmers call in and they say they're going to be burning. That's not somebody that's on fire. So they had to train those types of situations into the AI models that they use, and they're really good at identifying. They also err on the side of caution. So if there's any uncertainty about whether it could be an emergency call, it transfers it directly through to a live dispatcher. To that same end, we also had the concern about public safety officials being able to call in and not have to talk to AI to get through. There's a few ways to handle that. Right now, the easiest way for them to do it is just to say that they're a police officer or they're, with the fire department. We're also going to be putting out a specific phone number to our agencies and partners so that they can just call directly and then it'll ring to dispatch without that.
Are there other questions from council?
Yeah, I think that
Frank?
this is a pretty good follow-up to what you were just saying. And also, is it Brandon or Brendan?
Brendan.
Brendan. All right. Thank you, Brendan. So with regards to especially like the non-emergency calls, how do first responders then communicate with that call specifically, right? Because like I imagine the dispatch works that the AI sends it to whoever needs to be dispatched. And then how does it get confirmed? And is there a conversation that happens with the AI in that context?
Yeah,
or-
so it's still processed by a dispatcher. So it goes through kind of a QA.
Filter.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So it's going to be gathering and summarizing information. AI is really, really good at that. Getting information from somebody or from a particular place, summarizing it, and then giving it back to a dispatcher. So the dispatcher can go back through, they can quality check the information that was gathered. They also have the ability to play back the audio of the call and play back certain snippets of that call because it actually live transcribes. So it's got a full transcription of that. You can play just the individual, whether it's a phone number, the name, the spelling, date of birth, and the dispatcher can do a full quality check. And then they can send it to our CAD system, which any of our officers or responders can see.
Follow up?
No, I think
Okay.
that answered for now. Thank you.
Okay,
I've got
Sage.
several questions.
for it.
Yeah. So, what is the typical determination time of Aurelian for emergency versus non-emergency? Because,
Yeah.
those seconds really matter. right? So
Absolutely.
I'm just curious.
So just as if a live dispatcher was taking the call, it depends on what the reporting party's telling us.
Okay.
So it's looking for keywords. It's also going to be looking for if they're not making sense. So one of the things that gets brought up often is, I want to order a pizza. You called dispatch. Do you have, something you need to report? No, I need to order a pizza. It's going to forward it through to dispatch.
Okay.
Another thing that wasn't mentioned yet is there's a resistance level built into the system, which basically we can set it between, I believe it's numbers 1 through 7. And that will determine how hard AI is going to work to get information out of the caller before forwarding it through.
Okay.
So we can set that level and vary it, based on what we're seeing, frustration of the caller or quality of service that it's providing.
Okay.
Totally tunable.
That's great. And you answered my next question, which was about levers of Aurelian and how much customizability there was there. So that's great. When are you thinking at this stage of that the system will go live? Do you have a sense of
Yeah.
that?
So much like a real dispatcher, it completely depends on when it's ready. So
Okay.
it's trainable.
Okay.
We need, what I keep telling our dispatchers that work with it is they have given us somebody who knows how to dispatch, but maybe doesn't know how to dispatch for Whitcomb. So we have to tune it for City of Moscow, City of Pullman, all of the agencies that we dispatch for within the region. It's also going to be something that we determine how comfortable our dispatchers are with that system before we go fully live. So there's the technical side of things that have to be ironed out, and then there's also the operations side. We don't have a set date. It's just going to be when it's ready.
Maybe less than 12 months though.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We're definitely hoping by end of year that we can go live.
Any other Sage?
No, that
Okay.
answers my questions.
I have one.
Sandra, sure.
And this is actually probably more for Wendy, and that's only, everyone is, I know, a little hesitant to try new things, and I know dispatchers sometimes especially are not wanting to try new things. How's it been going? I'm sure now it's okay, but what was that initial presentation like? Was that a little sticky for folks?
Yeah, we had a little pushback from some people. Just the fear of the unknown, I think. And AI is pretty new, and a lot of people don't trust it. And so we've just been, showing them, giving them information from other agencies. That's why we took a group of staff to Moses Lake so they could all ask questions and do that kind of thing. We've been very open for this whole process, sending usually whenever there's an update, usually every week or every other week, just the latest of what's going on, where we're at, asking for feedback. And I think, I mean, we'll continue to get feedback from them through this whole process, even like once we go completely live. There is a 1 year money back, not money back, but cancellation available. And well, they do refund money up to a year if we cancel before the first year. All the agencies that we've talked to, I went to a conference a couple months ago and went to dinner with some agencies who have started using Aurelian, and all of them said, we can't imagine ever not using it.
Wow.
It's been a game changer for our staff. And I've talked to, dispatchers and managers and, just different levels just to see, just to make sure that, because I want to get the feedback from everybody. And it's been only positive. I haven't heard a single negative thing.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? So I guess in that same vein, aside from, presenting it to us, and I assume also Pullman City Council and other entities, how, if at all, do you plan on communicating this switch or transition to the public? Do you feel, is there public outreach? And I think that piggybacks nicely off of Sandra's question. So I'm curious, what the messaging will be and how you all intend on framing that.
Go
Yeah,
for
okay.
it.
Yeah, so we asked the same questions, to the agencies that were using it already, as well as to Aurelian and what they saw out in the field, which works best. It really depends on the community, was pretty much what they said. Most of the agencies that did put out word to the community, they said they wish they would have just not and just gone live with it. Most of the larger agencies are already utilizing phone trees, operators. You go through one operator to get to the place where you need to get to for dispatch centers. So it's almost the norm in larger areas and larger jurisdictions. So we haven't decided. I don't believe there's been anything that we've decided. I think what we were doing was going to be putting out information to our partner agencies and, hoping to hear some feedback from them and maybe make a decision together. Just because we announce it, for the city of Moscow doesn't need to be announced everywhere. So that's kind of difficult thing to undertake when you're a completely regional center.
Evan? Yeah,
I
sure.
just wanted to say one thing, and you insinuated early on that pizza delivery wasn't an emergency. So I just,
Oh, this is actually, I don't know, I find this very educational. I don't know if you want to, I don't know if it's only pizza, but I know this from growing up, and that's used as a phrase to alert someone if you are in an unsafe situation that you're not able to speak to the status of your situation. So I don't know if that's one piece of advocacy we can offer our avid listeners in the room and at home.
No, it's not ever been something that we've put out, but it's something that gets shared on social media often. So it's just kind of become an awareness of, 911 dispatchers as well as people in the community. So I think if that were to happen, we kind of know what they mean.
Yeah. My follow-up question, how has, because I think we have text to 911 available in the region now.
Yes.
And I'm gonna make one really quick aside since we have a somewhat full audience tonight. Dispatch funding and 911 funding in not just Idaho, but across the country is abysmally funded, and it is highly neglected. And there are a lot of large telecom providers who are not very excited to help play their part in terms of administering the fees that each phone line should be collecting from each phone line to then pay the agencies. So grateful to Whitcomb for doing a lot with a little quite often. But the text 911, I want to say, is one of the next generation conversations, but I'm curious what the utilization has been.
Yeah, so
it's been
we
rolled out.
expected a lot more, I think, as an industry as a whole,
Yeah.
with text to 911. We haven't seen a big uptick in text to 911. We have the capabilities of it, but I would say we get a handful every month that go back and forth.
And is Aurelian also able to help that, or it sounds like it's not a high enough volume?
So it wouldn't be,
really-
so again, they're not taking 911 calls, but they do have the ability to have a conversational chat. We offer it up to our agencies if they want it. It can be put on the webpage for non-emergency information gathering. So I know a lot of our college community, both Moscow and Pullman, that's how they prefer to talk. They don't want to call and talk to somebody. They'd rather text or fill out a form. So we do offer that service, and Aurelian offers that as well.
Scott, what do you got?
I got a few. So if you call 911, it automatically goes to AI until they determine whether, or does it?
So non-emergency lines. So not 911.
Not just a
911 will
non-emergency
always
until, okay.
Correct. Yes. 911 will always ring to a dispatcher.
Is Is it connected to the internet or is it a closed system? Like,
So it's a closed system in that, so it is internet based. So we have a login, so you log into a web page. However, it's locked down to the ability of they are certified to process criminal justice information or sensitive information. So they're hosted in Amazon Web Services GovCloud, which is a more secure service. So anything that's in GovCloud is pretty much public safety sector types of information.
so it's not any data like how it is that most people are concerned about data and how it's sold and
Absolutely.
packaged and sent out. I know a lot of this would be, some of it be public record, but is that something that data is also packaged and sold out?
No, to my knowledge, it's not. We could double
was just-
check with contract, but that's not anything that we were made aware of. Data privacy is a huge concern in public safety, so.
Okay, last one.
Sure. Sorry, I stumbled over my own offering.
one.
Yes, sure, Scott, go
Um,
ahead.
Is it able to interpret other languages when people call in?
Yes, I believe it was something in the realm of 35 over text and was it like 10 voice? And they're looking at expanding that as they go because they're using what they call LLMs or language learning models for AI. They're expanding on those. But again, it's a slow process because they're really careful about making sure that everything is correct. You know, they don't just want to expand and then go, oh gosh, we have some problems. So they're doing a lot of QA in the expansion of that.
Bryce, sorry, unless Scott had follow-up.
No,
Okay.
I
Scott,
had a
well,
quick
nah,
question,
I
sorry.
saw
Okay,
Bryce first, sorry.
Bryce first.
Bryce first, then we'll go Sage, and then I'll try.
I have a question for Chief. So if you have a question for Brendan, go.
Oh,
for it.
okay, fair enough.
Okay, I actually have a question for the director in
Oh,
particular.
Wendy,
Yeah, Wendy. So Wendy, you mentioned earlier the need for more staffing in these systems that you're now at like 12 or 13, but really ideally you'd be at 20. There's some training lags there of a year. Do you foresee this Aurelian system lessening the need to fill that staffing gap, or if anything, does this heighten the need for that?
I don't see, I mean, we have no intentions of cutting our staffing. I mean, our 911 dispatchers are there and they're needed. We handle a lot of non-emergency calls, but our dispatchers aren't secretaries.
Yeah.
But a lot of the calls that come in on those lines are like, that type of calls. Our dispatchers are very highly trained, and we are going to continue to train and hire, and so we can have full staff. Hopefully, that's my goal before I retire.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
So,
And just to add to that, part of the reason that I don't see that happening is dispatchers have been asked to do more and more with the amount of data that's available to them. Your iPhone sends data to us. If you drop it, it could send crash detected data that goes directly to 911. They're putting in and have been for larger municipalities, shot detectors. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. Basically camera systems that can detect gunshots, send location. Dispatchers are trained to monitor those types of things. We have smoke detection cameras. They have to monitor and check those and possibly enter calls based on that. There's also been a big push for video feed into dispatch. That's not something that we're entertaining at the moment, but it's the way that the industry is going. So as more and more information needs to be processed by a human and not by AI, I just think AI is going to be the supplemental for handling the non-emergency call transfers, those types of situations.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Bryce, your question for
Yeah.
Chief?
Yeah,
Go
thank
for
you,
it.
Madam Mayor. And I really appreciate all three of you taking these questions. I mean, it's super fascinating. I think we're all clearly wanting to learn as much as possible. So thanks for entertaining as much as you have so far. Chief, I just want to know like a pulse check on how MPD's responding to this potentiality here. Like what's the energy within the department of engaging with AI in this capacity?
Yeah, from the law enforcement perspective, by the time the information gets to us for our CAD system, Aurelian's already done its job. I watch it all day long on my computer. We had our first call during the test the other day come through and had this little disclaimer on the top, said information gathered by AI. But again, it's already gone through the system, gone to a dispatcher, and it's getting to us. So our interaction directly with it is minimal at best. So far, that's from what I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
We're learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Any other questions, Evan? Okay. Groovy. The only thing I was going to add, so just for educational purposes, so Whitcom is a separate entity of which Moscow is a member and is governed by a board. Chief Dollinger is our board representative. Their meetings are public in Pullman at an address that I can't remember right now. But their agenda, their information for the meetings are hosted on the Pullman City website. Yes, sure, go for it.
While we're talking about the educational
Mhm.
part, Wendy, if people wanted to apply, how would they do that?
Oh, yes. For one of your openings.
Excuse me. Sorry. The City of Pullman website, right now, we are not accepting applications only because we have 2 trainees. We have 2 more applicants that are, we're starting the background with in the next couple weeks. And we just didn't want people just sitting around waiting for too long because we can't, not everybody's a trainer, and we can usually handle about 2 trainees at a time. And so we have to space things out. So, but information is on the City of Pullman website. We were talking about it last week. We'll probably be opening the job announcement probably in the next month-ish. So because the testing and all that takes, quite a while. So we'd like to have people ready to go when these 2 trainees are done. We want to have our others, hopefully they're past their background investigation and they're going to be ready to start.
And the other thing I was going to add to that point, Sandra, it is I don't want to call it industry, but this is a nationwide trend, right? As far as shortage of dispatch, and it's a very hard job to fill. This is not unique to Whitcomb, but I do think the interagency, cross-state, cross-function nature of Whitcomb makes it, if you're not already interested in dispatch, a really extra interesting opportunity. And so with that, I guess we will be sure that Chief has any follow-up questions from us for us to ask you, but thank you for sharing the information. And any last call questions, anybody? Was that a, okay, that was a, nah, okay, beautiful.
Can I just add one thing?
Yes, please.
Next week is National Telecommunicator Week, and it's the week where we celebrate our dispatchers. So just so y'all know, if you see anything.
But don't call 911 to say thank you.
No.
is what I'm- Okay, got it. Okay, silly
Thank
joke.
you.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
Wendy.
you
Thanks,
so much.
Brendan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. Okay, next on our agenda, is the annual fire department report with Chief Nickerson. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Hope everybody's good this evening. I can tell you that before they leave the room, but that's an awesome group over at Whitcomb. I mean, it's amazing what they do with the staff that they have and stuff. So I really appreciate them. I know Chief Dollinger appreciates them. So it's a lot of thankless work that nobody sees. They only hear. So, but I really appreciate them. So, wrong way. Oh, hey, look out there. We're going backwards.
Oh, that was really fast. Nice job. Any questions? Any-
Okay, so is there any questions? Backwards.
There is a quiz.
Yeah, so Bill likes this term. We had a record year. 3,000, he made fun of me the other day. 3,046 calls last year, which is the highest it's ever been in the history of the fire department. Just 2 years ago, we had 3,002. We've never broken 3,000 before until 2 years ago. You'll notice that 77% are EMS calls. Now that includes some vehicle accidents and everyday EMS calls. And to your right, you'll see overlapping incidents, 32%. So 32% of the time, there's at least 2 calls going on at one time. Sometimes there's 3, sometimes there's 4. We have never left a call uncovered. But it's a challenge, just the way we function and operate. But 32% of the time, we're actually going nonstop. So if you'll see there, I'm gonna have to go back to the other way. If you see the column right there down below the graph down at the bottom, and you see fire, rescue, EMS, hazardous conditions and all that. This next slide tells you kind of what those are. Hazardous conditions, a gas leak, power line down, ballast or overheated device in a building. Service call could be a water problem, smoke removal, those types of things, assist the police. We do have unauthorized burning in town on occasion. Good intent is something that we were dispatched to, but we were canceled. en route to because it just didn't need assistance. Authorized burning is people just calling on the neighbor or whatever, even though it's burn season. As long as it's not a hazard to the neighbors or a true complaint, then we won't. We'll just talk to them about the issue, and then it's usually resolved itself. And then special incidents, basically taking care of somebody that has a complaint about something. We don't get very many of those, but on occasion we'll get them. EMS type incidents. So we run the only ALS, advanced life support, ambulance service in the entire county. So typically it'll be what we call Charlie and above. So Charlie, Deltas, and Echoes. And that's the severity, starts at Alpha, Bravo, and then Charlie, Delta, Echo. Typically a paramedic will go to anything Charlie and above within the city or within the response area for the ambulance, which covers the Moscow rural area as well. So those include cardiac emergencies, difficulty breathing, those kind of things. The paramedic rendezvous that's up there, we do that in conjunction with the county. We're the only paramedic level service within the entire county. So we do go at their request, which is about 120, 130 times a year. We do get funding from the county for it to help offset some costs for maintenance and training. So we have those opportunities. The next level down is intermediate life support. So basically they can do IVs, fluids, and those types of things. And then we have the BLS, which is very basic EMT. So statistics. So the busiest months last year was January, August, and September. And the busiest time of day, which has been the trend for the last, 5-6 years at least, has been 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I have no idea why, but it's just that 12-hour period. Busiest day, Saturdays, Fridays, and Mondays. I'm not sure what the trend is there. And again, a lot of these talking about those times, talking about the days and the months, there's not such a huge gap, if you will, to really say that, hey, we need to try to figure out something else or maybe put an extra engine on during that month or those days or whatever. It's not such a wide variety or timing. It's all pretty narrow to try to determine that risk. Fire alarms, we went to 262 false alarms last year. We did not write a ticket. I don't believe in tickets. I believe in education. And ever since we started doing that many years ago, we've seen an increase in basically at least the partnership with a lot of these businesses or fraternities and sororities and those types of things. It's really, really helped because then they have a better understanding of why we show up and why we do what we do. So typically they're pretty welcoming to try to take care of it as quickly as they can. So I went just to one the other day and they felt so bad that we had to be there. And it's like, that's why you have the system. But we don't write tickets, at least now. We haven't for years. So we are seeing more and more installation of fire alarms though, because we have other business coming in town. Some businesses are upgrading their systems. So, and some of those will hopefully reduce a few of them too, because they'll be the newer technology. So fire investigations, we are required to investigate all fires within the city limits. So throughout the year, we've had multiple fires last year and so far this year. So we do it internally, and we don't call the state fire marshal's office. We do it with the PD, and they will come in and help us gather stuff and help us investigate things or do interviews and all that kind of stuff with us and for us. So there's a great partnership for that. Now, if we need to call the state fire marshal's office, we can. We have a good relationship with them. We just choose to do it ourselves. So that way it's all in-house. So types of inspections. So we have an inspector that goes out and does inspections annually. So restaurants, gathering places, mercantile places that sell alcohol, we're required to do those in partnership with Lori to issue their business license or their license each year for serving alcohol. Fraternities and sororities, we do twice a year. So we do it when they come in. And then we do it after they come back from winter break. So usually we give them an opportunity to get settled in a little bit, and then go look at it and go from there. So. Community outreach. We do a lot of fire prevention activities. We do CPR class, AED class. We do a lot of fire station tours. And then obviously if the sports teams are successful, those are kind of fun. We started that about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So, and those are kind of fun. Event standbys, which include, we stand by for football games, basketball games, all kinds of events, concerts, all of those mostly on campus. But also we have the new Bill of Safety Fair and all those types of things. So, so we do a lot of extracurricular stuff, and keeping in mind that most all of them are volunteers. So they step up and go do it and stuff. So highlights, we implemented a new record management system last year. However, we've had some challenges. So we're actually working on right now switching. Hopefully go live October 1. So, but hopefully in the end, it'll be a bit better. So we'll be good in the end, I think. Recruitment and retention is always a challenge. And it's like you just mentioned with Wendy and Brendan, you know, it's not just here. This is across the country. I read articles at least once a week about people and what they're doing and what they can't do and struggle with. And it's no different here. People, well, we got 25,000, 30,000 people. Well, yeah, that's fine. But a lot of people don't want to commit to that time commitment, not only the training, but also the time after that too. So we had the new hires start January last year, January 6th. So we implemented a stipend program that can be for anybody, but you have to be a firefighter to do it. So Thanksgiving, winter break, and spring break, we averaged 85% or more. This last spring break, we were 100% covered for this year. But summer last year, we had about 45% roughly. And that's outside of the 2 summer hires we hire each year during those 14 weeks. So we're going to shoot for it again this year, and we're going to see how we do and kind of evaluate it as we go. So it does make a difference. You can't do much with just 2 people or the command officer, or it's just a lot. So basically, we went up 1% from last year. Still our average turnover, 18 to 24 months. It's inevitable because we're so transient in nature. We have a lot of students, both fire and EMS. So still about 13%, 15% of the volunteers are community residents. So again, it's not a lot, but the ones that are here are consistent and they do the job. We currently have about 85 volunteers, which we've averaged between 85, 100. You know, it goes down in the summer because obviously a lot of the residents leave and so forth. So it does go down. Last year we tried to expand. We did expand the program from 24 to 28, and on average, then we did 30 last year, and that was a lot, admittedly. But the point being is that we can fill what we need or what we can house. So again, we set another record of applications for the resident program of 51 applicants for 7 positions. And we tested 24 just last Saturday. So there's people interested. There's people who want to come. So, and you'll see that here in a minute, but we're going to return to 25 this fall because it's a little more manageable space wise. And then the 2 that are managing are myself and Chief Ellenwood. And it's a challenge with what we have to do. So training, we do fall academy every year, fire academy. Like right now, Fire 2 is going on. So it's an advanced course. There's an EMT class or optional module class that's going to finish up. Hazmat just finished up. So we have training going on all the time. Again, EMS training, we usually do an EMT class twice a year. It kind of depends. Sometimes we take a break depending on how many trainees, just like Whitcomb. We try not to overburden ourselves with having 15 trainees and all that. So we try to monitor that a little bit. And then the training there, we usually average about 11,000 hours of training each year on average. And that's everybody collectively, whether they do the minimum or whether they do, as many as they can. So top 5 priorities that I see, facilities, station and housing, the sustainability of the volunteer and student and resident program, develop and improve station facilities and housing to support current and future additional needs, and the consolidation of administrative offices. Right now, our administrative offices are split in two different places. So it creates a communications challenge, but also just challenges in general. The resident program manager type thing, if we can, again, that's a role that we would like to have in the future, to be able to have somebody focus on and give these students really what they need, and that's time and effort on a regular daily basis. Expand the resident program to include not only the fire side, but the EMS side as well. Like I said, 51 applicants. We could have got more, but we only have 7 openings. We only have space for this many. The priority is the fire side. So which everybody's required to do the fire academy. But if we expand into the other role of EMS as well, expand the fire resident, but also expand into the EMS role, there's some other opportunities going forward possibly that would be beneficial. Still look for ways to find community members, and it's hard because again, it's the expectations, it's the requirements, all those things to try to sustain. Because there are times we will have regular members come and do the fire academy. They either won't finish the academy because it's a lot. It's twice a week and on Saturdays between August and September or in November. Or they'll get done and then they'll kind of see how it is for a couple months and then they'll just go away. So again, it's that how to keep them though is part of the challenge because that commitment, that's hard. And then how to enhance experience levels. I think that's where somebody asked me not too long ago is what keeps me up at night? And basically it's the amount of experience we have. And we're sending 18 to 21-year-olds along with a few people here and a few people there. And, there's a battalion chief sitting right over here that has a lot of experience that I trust that can make decisions, but also you're giving those tasks to those young adults to make those commitments to do something, right? So that's what keeps me up is the level of experience we have. Now, again, we are transient. We know that. We train to a very high level. Everybody is prepared. But again, it's kind of hard to be prepared and have 10 years of experience within the first 2 years, right? So that's one of the challenges that we're trying to work on and see what we can do. So, okay, now that's the better version.
Questions for Chief? Evan, go for it.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's reason for concern that one of the busiest months is identified as August, and it's also one of the times when you're identifying you have the least coverage from volunteers. Has that created any sticking points?
No, not really, because we have, like I said, we still have community members. We do have some residents in particular or students that stick around. They're allowed to stay at the station. Some of them will have jobs here. They won't necessarily leave to go home. They will stick around. So we allow them to stay at the station on a summer contract, if you will, with requirements. But I think that then we have the stipend program on top of that we just added just a year ago for the summer. So that's one of those things, and just in trying to figure out how can we keep more people. So it's a challenge, sure. It always is, always will be, but that's kind of one of the things we're looking at to try to figure out the stipends and how that works and how we can keep more people.
Scott.
Will you explain, you said in one of your slides, there's 85% coverage at this time of the year and then 45. Will you explain what that actually means?
So if you take winter or Thanksgiving break, you take winter break, which is Christmas holiday. So basically when the university is closed. So
what is the 85% of full staff or what's
85% of all the shifts. So there's 12-hour shifts throughout that entire period. So for those 10 days, let's say for Thanksgiving. So there's 2 open shifts, 12 hours. You have to sign up for 12 hours. You can't do an hour or 2 at a time. And so out of 2 12-hour shifts, so it's 24 hours, right? So it's 4 people or the 2 same people for 24 hours. So for that, 85% of those shifts at 12-hour increments are filled 85% of the time. And like I said, this past spring break, it was 100%. And a lot of people don't want to, it's amazing some of the kids don't want to go home. They want to stay here.
And well, and so Scott, to your point, like, so that number may make you feel some type of way, but I also think what's changed is that 15% remaining used to be strictly time that like our paid staff, like chief was having to fill in on those shifts, right? Like some of that's changed with the stipends and
A little. It used to be, before we started the stipends, we tried for several years just a sign-up list. Hey, who's going to be around? You want to sign up? And we did a little matrix for 3 years, and basically less than 1% was signing up. So I think that now the way we're doing it now with the stipend, it's not a lot, but it's a little bit of cash in the pocket for them to be able to basically consider staying. And we put it out early enough before they go home, so that way they can see if they really want to stay or what it's going to look like. So
did you have follow up, Scott? I'm sorry.
No, I think that's clear enough.
Bryce,
I just
sure.
don't want people thinking like 45% of the city was covered.
no,
Okay.
like I said,
Right.
Gotcha.
Like, I hope you're on that side.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're-
I just wanted to make sure
Sure.
that was clear
We're-
for everybody else besides myself.
But you
we're
call,
covered
they come.
100. We're covered 100% of the time. We don't miss calls. That's for sure.
Bryce.
Yeah, and I guess to that end, I mean, as you keep seeing kind of the incidents continue to climb, at least the last 2 years, I mean, clearly this is a very conceptual, philosophical question, which makes sense for me. But is there a way to potentially like elevate education to potentially correlate reduced incidents? I mean, to go back to levels that maybe were more familiar 5 years ago, or do you just expect this trend to just keep climbing?
If you look at the trend of all the fire departments across the country, it's all going up, no matter what. Population is aging. Construction is changing. It's not the same. A house fire 20, 25, 30 years ago, you got about 10 to 14 minutes to get out. Now you have 3, 4, 5, maybe. I mean, that's just the construction, so those types of things, we have to be there even quicker than what we used to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, just because of the construction itself. And again, population's getting older, so there's more falls, there's more cardiac stuff, there's more incidents. I don't see it going down. We may take a dip.
Sure.
But when I arrived here 12 years ago, we were at 23 to 2,400. And that was 2014. So, and we were that way for a little while, and then all of a sudden we went up. So.
Other questions, comments? Okay. When I say I love this report, I don't mean I like, how do I want to say this? We couldn't have the quality of life and safety that we have in Moscow without what the Moscow Volunteer Fire Department does. So I am grateful for the students who do choose to make Moscow home and give back to the community by being a part of the student program. We also know that because we don't have many paid positions for those who want to seek EMT or EMS or fire as a paid career, our runway is tricky, right? We don't have that same sort of opportunity. So grateful for them, grateful for the program, thankful for your crew. Worried. I can't wait to see what the trend does next year, I guess. Anything else before we send Chief home? Okay.
Let's hope the radios and trucks keep working and
Yes.
not crashing.
Love it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6 on our agenda is the Woodbury Replat Development Agreement Amendment and Monumentation Agreement with Bob Bouvel. Welcome, Bob.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Recuse myself from this one.
Take a seat, my friend. We'll see you. Also, if I don't remember to
Yeah. I guess.
okay, come back. So after this item. Okay.
Good evening.
Hello, Bob.
As you mentioned, I'm here to talk to you about the Woodbury replat amendments to the development and the monumentation agreements associated with that replat. Just a little bit of background for anybody that isn't familiar with where the Woodbury development is. This is a vicinity map kind of showing the location of the Woodbury development in relation to the rest of the city. The final replat was approved by City Council, as most of you may recall, in February of 2026. A little bit more background. These areas dashed or shaded in red are some of the areas that got replatted with that replat. And some of the a lot of the changes to the replat was a little bit increase in density, changing the widths of some of the right of ways, and kind of changing the construction of some of the public improvements within the development. So talking about the development agreement, this is just an amendment. So two things that needed to be addressed in the amendment were, one, the conditional approval of a variance for using concrete pavers in the sidewalk section rather than our typical standard concrete sidewalks. So we included language in the development agreement to address the construction of the pavers and then the maintenance of the pavers, which is supposed to go to the HOA. And then along with the new replat, the phasing plan of the development changed, so the development agreement needed to change to reflect that phasing change. The monumentation agreement is it's a pretty typical thing that we have to do for almost all subdivisions. The state code requires that in order to file the plat, you need to have also filed an agreement to do the monumentation of all the property corners and all the street monuments prior to filing the plat. And it basically makes it so you can construct the subdivision prior to setting all the pins and all that stuff. Because the density of the plat increased, the price increased, and so the monumentation agreement needed to be updated to reflect that. These are pretty standard things that we do pretty regularly. So our recommendation staff's recommendation is to approve the development agreement amendment and the amended monumentation agreement for the Woodbury replat. This item was reviewed by the administrative committee on March 23rd, and it was recommended for approval by that committee.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bob. Any
Questions?
questions for Bob or staff? Bill?
Mike Front's not on. You want to highlight the one change that was made to the agreement related to the pavers installation?
The paver installation, we did from the administrative committee to now, we did make one change to the paver construction, which did change the language from stating that they had to be set in concrete to they need to be the paver section needed to be a paving section that was approved by the city engineer.
Okay, groovy.
And that came about because the material supplier indicated that setting them in concrete was not a recommended practice in an area of the freeze thaw. So we currently are evaluating different installation methods, but we thought just providing that flexibility and letting the city engineer approve the installation method.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
clarification. Okay. Anything else from the crew? Any questions, any discussion? There's an drafted action in front of you. If anyone feels some type of way.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move we approve the development agreement amendment and amended monumentation agreement for the replat Woodbury First Edition.
Second.
Motion from Sandra, second from Bryce. Any further discussion? Okay. Groovy. Let me get my little list here. Bryce,
Aye.
Sage,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Drew is gone, Scott is abstaining, and Evan.
Aye.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Monumentation, it is. Welcome back, Scott. Okay, and last on our agenda before reports is the 2025 Water, Sewer, and Stormwater Utility Rate Study with Tyler Palmer and crew. Welcome, Tyler.
Your Honor, thank you. Appreciate the time. Your Honor, Council, happy to be here to discuss the water, sewer, and storm utility rate study. This was a process that was completed last year, and we're happy to bring this before the council tonight. A rate study is really the city's, it's a foundational process, and it's one that directly affects our system reliability, our long-term financial health, and our fairness to our ratepayers. And so it's a process by which we assure that our utilities are able to continue to serve the people that they're intended to serve. These are utility systems that as a community, the community of Moscow owns these utility systems, but they are enterprise funds. And so they have to be self-supporting, they have to be financially stable, and it has to be legally defensible. And so we have to be able to legally defend what it is we're collecting and what it goes to. And so as we collect funds for these utilities, those funds stay in the utilities, and we have to defensively say, these are the activities the utilities need to engage in order to have that consistent, reliable service for the residents of Moscow. And the city of Moscow historically has done a really good job of keeping up on that. It's long been the position of a stitch in time saves nine, trying to do maintenance on a system rather than waiting for a system to fall into disrepair. It's a far more expensive way of doing it. So what their core rate studies really are, they ask a simple but crucial question, which is, are we collecting the right amount of revenue? Are we collecting it from the right customers at the right time in order to maintain these systems? It's a pretty big process, but boiling it down to its most simple, really what we try to do is, first and foremost, we look internally and we make sure that our operations are as lean as they can be. It's something that in the past rate study that we're coming to the end of right now, and in what's being proposed tonight, we haven't added any staff to any of these utilities, and the utilities have grown. We have systems that are growing. We've been trying to offset the impact of the growth as much as we can through technology and efficiencies, because we really are dedicated to trying to do the most that we can to keep utility rates low, because there are pressures that are difficult to grapple with in the utility world. And one of the big pressures is just the influence of construction inflation. Construction inflation has consistently, historically outpaced traditional inflation, the CPI numbers. And that's been the case. Usually it's 1.5 to 2 times more than the standard inflation. And that directly impacts these utilities because so much of the activity is construction related. And so we're always grappling with those pressures to try and keep rates affordable in the face of that reality. In addition, this rate study was completed, last rate study that we completed was in 2020. And so post-COVID, there was a really big spike, especially in the construction sector. And so we were pretty nervous going into this utility rate study. A lot of our peers that we'd seen were seeing numbers that were in the double digits for annual increases. But I think you'll see that what we came out with was a lot more friendly than that. And while there are increases that are going to be proposed in this rate study, the overall bill impact was not as scary as it might have been. And some of that was just some good planning and some luck. We were able to get some of our big projects, especially on the water side, completed. We took out some strategic loans to complete, for example, the booster stations in Well 10. When we look at the interest rate we got on those loans now versus what we're seeing, that was a good move. And getting some of those bigger, more expensive projects out of the way really ameliorated the impact that we could have seen otherwise on the rates that are coming before you tonight. So what I'm going to do tonight is I will be turning the time over to Brooke with FCS, Brooke Tasia. And Brooke is one of the consultants that works for FCS, who's the firm that we brought in as a third party to take a look at this. And FCS has been a partner through many of our rate studies. They're familiar with our systems, and really they go through and provide us that independent voice that reviews our numbers, takes a look at this, and make sure that we're staying in order and make sure that we have the equity and the rates that allow for that responsible maintenance of the system. So I'm going to turn the time over to Brooke and let her give you a presentation on what their activities were in this.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you. Yes, Brooke Tasia, FCS, happy to be here and ready to talk through the water, sewer, and stormwater rate study. So just an outline of our discussion, we're going to go through an overview of the rate setting process. We're going to give a brief background, and then we're going to talk through the study findings and recommendations. First, the revenue requirement, then the cost of service, and then we're going to wrap it up with rate design for all three of the utilities before I pass it back to Tyler to talk about next steps and questions. So in terms of the overview of the rate setting process, typically we think of a rate study with three main steps. The first is the revenue requirement. So we're trying to determine the overall amount of revenue that we need to bring in to satisfy all the fiscal obligations of the utility over a multi-year time period and on a standalone basis. So that's the key, as Tyler mentioned, these are enterprise funds. So we'll look at things like our operating and our maintenance expenses, any existing debt service, as well as the capital costs of the utility. Also consider some of our indirect expenses like meeting our reserve requirements as well. Once we determine that step one, that overall revenue requirement, we move on to step two, the cost of service or equity evaluation. So here we're taking that revenue pie and we're splitting it up between our customer classes to determine whether the revenue that's generated by those classes is in alignment with cost causation. And if it's not, we can start to make adjustments to bring those two closer together. Finally, in our third step, we design our rates to collect the targeted revenue that we've outlined in steps 1 and 2. And typically we do that through use of fixed and variable charges for each of the utilities, perhaps with the exception of stormwater. So in terms of the brief background here, we did start this study in 2025, spent several months working with staff to develop the capital funding and rate strategies that you're going to see tonight. We also did work with the Citizen Rate Committee across 3 separate presentations, first in April to talk through rate setting fundamentals, then in May to talk through the revenue requirement and cost of service, and then finally again in July to talk about rate design and final recommendations. So first step here, revenue requirement. We're going to take a look at the 3 utility and the key components of each of those here. So existing rate revenue for the water utility is about 7.6 to 8 million across this 7-year time frame. Sewer is about 9.3 to 9.7, and a little lower on stormwater at about 1.2 to 1.3 again across those 7 years. Those revenues are in support of operating and maintenance expenses. You can see that each of those utilities has a range of operating and maintenance expenses over the next 7 years. In addition, the water and sewer utility have system reinvestment funding. So this is dedicated capital funding that comes from rates to help to provide for those capital improvement projects. On the water and sewer side, we also have some existing debt service. Sewer, though, will be fully repaid within this 7-year period. We have no existing debt service for the stormwater utility right now. In addition to, we also have about $13.6 million in CIP for the water utility, about 45.1 for sewer, and just about 5.7 million for stormwater. And then in addition, we also just want to make sure that we're looking out over that full, 15 to 20 year time frame. And we're going to concentrate on this shorter kind of rate setting window of 7 years, but we want to make sure we're not falling off a cliff, let's say, in the future, and that we're able to fund that long-term infrastructure need. So taking a look specifically at water here, the bars are representing the obligations of the water utility. The green are the O&M expenses, orange existing debt service. The gray is that system reinvestment funding. And then the yellow is all the rest of the capital funding that we need to be able to implement that capital plan. We compare that forecast of obligations to rates at their existing levels, which is that solid black line. And what we see from that is that the water utility under existing rates is able to cover a lot of those obligations into the future, but we start to see some impacts on the capital plan without raising our rates. Without doing any rate adjustments, we would not be able to complete that entire capital plan. So we are capital driven for this particular utility. Taking a look at sewer, again, a very similar look with obligations in the bars there, and also a pretty similar story for the sewer utility. So when we compare our obligations again to those forecasted revenues under existing rates, for the sewer, we can cover our O&M, our existing debt service, and almost all of our system reinvestment, that dedicated rate funded capital, under our existing rates, but we can't fulfill that entire capital plan without making some adjustments. So again, here, the sewer utility is really capital driven, and that's pushing the need for those rates. And then finally on stormwater, looking again at the obligations here, we've got our O&M expenses as well as that rate funded capital component. Right now, what we're showing is that we're just barely meeting our obligations under our existing rates there for our O&M expenses, and we really don't have a lot of capacity for capital right now. So the move here, as we're moving into the future for stormwater, we see this as really both operational and capital driven. So we need to increase rates just to be able to handle our O&M expenses in the future, as well as to add some capacity for capital infrastructure needs. So just in summary here, revenues at their current levels are not sufficient to meet ongoing needs of all three of the utilities. And it's really more capital driven for water and sewer. And in stormwater, we see kind of both of those O&M and capital driven components. So the recommendation here, again, based off of the Citizen Rate Committee, they looked at 4 separate scenarios for each of the utilities and provided direction to help us dial those into the recommendations that you're going to see tonight. One of those was to prioritize cash funding, so avoiding debt in the near future if we can, as well as to provide and plan for the needs beyond the 6 to 7 year window. So looking out and making sure that we're not going to fall off that cliff and we know what's coming in the next 20 years or so. And then again, to gradually build up those stormwater rates. So we know that we have to build in some capacity for capital infrastructure there. And so to gradually build those up over time was that third recommendation. So taking a look here at the recommended scenarios for water, looking at 5.15% increases from 2027 to 2031. And that would be a fully cash funded capital program, no need for additional debt. On the sewer side, again, fully cash-funded CIP, we'd be looking at a 2.8% annual rate increase from 2027 to 2031. And on the stormwater side, a bit higher here because, again, we're trying to build up some of that capital capacity in the future. So looking at a 29% rate increase in 2027 and 2028, followed by 15% in 29 and 6% each in 2030 and 2031. I will point out stormwater is from a dollar amount is a smaller amount. So that 29% is certainly a smaller dollar amount overall. And then when we look at those all combined, the average residential impact in 27 and 28, about 5.7 to 6%. And then we drop to about 5 in 29 and about 4.3% total, 2030 and 2031. All right. So we're going to switch gears into step 2 here. So again, we're taking now that revenue pie and we're starting to allocate it to our customer classes. We lean on some of our engineering and design criteria as well as our customer usage patterns to help us do this. But again, just really trying to answer that question of whether customer classes are paying for their allocated share of costs. So taking a look here at the outcome for water, typically when we look at a cost of service, we'll say if the outcome is within plus or minus 10% of the overall increase, then the class is within their cost of service. We know that costs fluctuate each year, so it's not going to be perfect. So there's that range of reasonableness attached to it. What we see on the water side is that residential and non-residential customers are within that range of reasonableness. So they're paying their allocated share of costs. However, our cemetery class has been underpaying compared to their allocated share of costs. So this is one of those areas where we could start to phase in adjustments to bring them closer to their true cost to serve. Looking at that same analysis on the sewer side, again, range of reasonableness at about that 10%. We see our multifamily class just slightly overpaying based on their allocated cost to serve. And we see our commercial, medium, and high sewer classes paying below their allocated cost to serve. So again, this is one of those kind of phase in and balancing acts that we can do over time to start to bring them closer to their cost of service. So we'll take a look at that example here for water. Based off of the results of that cost of service, we've proposed a phase-in plan based off of committee recommendation, looking to start phasing in cost of service for the cemetery class in 2028, where we would see 20% annual rate increases to that class through 2031. And there was a decision to defer that phase-in to start in 2028, ideally to give the cemetery class time to implement conservation measures. Taking a look here at the sewer cost of service. So again, very similar concept. We're trying to phase in our multifamily and our medium and high classes towards their cost of service, which means multifamily will increase below the system average. So you'll see they'll do 2.1% increases from 2027 to 2031. And then we'll see our medium and high classes increasing above that system average at about 6% or 5.75% respectively. So again, that's going to start to phase in those classes towards their allocated cost to serve. And then finally here, the rate design step. And again, this is where we're trying to recover the identified amount of revenue from steps 1 and 2, ideally through the mix of fixed and variable charges with the exception of stormwater. We don't have any structure changes for most of the utilities, water, sewer, stormwater, with the exception of one. We are going to be transitioning the sewer multifamily rate to a fixed and variable structure over a 3-year period. Right now, the multifamily rate is a per unit rate, so just a fixed rate for the sewer utility. And so we're going to be phasing, again, that into more of a fixed and variable structure starting in 2028. We're going to step that through a 3-year phase-in process. Outside of that rate structure change, there are no other changes to the rate structure. The rates will be applied across the board based off of the cost of service findings that we just talked about. So we'll take a look here at just the water rate schedule first. You can see residential and non-residential fixed charges increasing into the future just based off of the overall rate increase. Same for our residential and non-residential volume charges. We do have a tiered residential volume charge, just noting that. And then we will see that cemetery rate, the variable rate increase starting in 2028 based off of those cost of service findings. Here on the sewer side of things, this is where we'll start to see that rate structure change for our multifamily class starting in 2028. We will see a variable component to that charge. We'll be starting to recover about 10% of utility revenues in 2028 through the variable charge. We're going to step that up to 25% recovery in 2029 before being full 50-50 recovery by 2030 through the variable charge. And again, outside of that, no other rate structure changes, rate increases applied across the board. And then finally, a little more simplistic on the stormwater side of things. We don't do a cost of service for stormwater. It's pretty straightforward in terms of the application of an equivalent service unit charge. So again, those increases are applied across the board here for storm. And I can go ahead and pass it back up to Ty.
Thanks, Brooke. Yeah, so just to recap real quickly, with our rate study, a couple of the highlights that I just want to emphasize is we are looking at, one, with the sewer utility, that's the only real structural change, which is the addition of a variable rate for multifamily. That's feedback that we've received from our Citizen Rate Committee over the last 2 sewer rate studies. And so it's something we'd committed to really try to look at for this. And it's an attempt to provide a mechanism for a little bit more equity within that multifamily and the ability. On the city side, we really appreciate the encouragement that can have for water conservation. Because if you're a multifamily building owner, you can have an impact not only on your water bill, but also on your sewer bill by having good conservation in place. And so we think that this is something that we can come up with a system and a structure that will make sense. And with that gradual phase in, we can make sure that we're not having an unexpected impact on the reliability of the system. And then with the stormwater rate, just the council will recall that during our last cycle, we brought through the creek maintenance plan. The creek maintenance plan is funded within this proposal. We had an initial proposal for an annual project in the creek maintenance plan. In working with the Citizen Rate Committee, it was felt like that really had, as one would expect, a larger impact on the rates, a more acceleratory impact on the rates. And from a staff perspective, we really didn't feel like it was realistic that we could get a project out annually on the creek maintenance plan. We think it's more realistic that we can have a planning and design year and then an implementation year. And so an every other year project. And so we were the staff's recommendation was in accordance with the Citizen Rate Committee that go to an every other year process so that doesn't have as big an impact. But we're able to start to fund some of the capital needs because that's a brand new utility. We knew as we're going through, we're in the discovery phase. Well, we've started to discover and a lot of pipes that haven't been cleaned or inspected since they were installed, some of them 100 years ago. And so we're discovering things that need to be done. And so starting to develop some capital to actually proactively maintain that system instead of reactively. One of the things that has been a hallmark of Mosco's rate setting process is that it's not just a technical exercise, it's a community informed process. And so we do feel the Citizen Rate Committee and we take their recommendations very seriously. We engage with them throughout the process. The mayor appoints members of the Citizen Rate Committee, and it's an attempt to have representation from different sectors of the rate paying community. And so we have people from industry, from multifamily, single family residential, businesses of different sizes, and try and get that representation. We have with us tonight Dan Schoenberg. Dan, immense gratitude. He has served on many of our rate committees and has really been a driving force for a lot of changes, a lot of feedback that we've received. We also appreciate Councilor McKiddich for his help on this rate committee. And so he got to sit in on this before joining city council. And so got baptized into that process. So I'm going to ask Dan if he'd like to come up and say a few words as a representative of the rate committee about that experience. And then I'll come back up and open up the floor for any questions you might have.
Cool. Thanks, Tyler. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, council members, mayor. Just for the record, my name is Dan Schoenberg. I'm co-owner of Plus Properties here in Moscow, and I live just outside of the city limits in Latah County. And I think I've served on just about every rate committee that we've had for I can't remember how many years. It's actually a great process to go through, and it's I think it's helpful for the community. You know, we manage pretty close to 260 buildings here in town and 1,400 units. So we see about everything in that process. That's some of the reasons why when we come to the table and have conversations, we're able to look at things structurally because we have such a variety of housing that we provide to the community. One of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit today that was mentioned was the restructuring in the sewer rates for multifamily. And the underlying reason why. Today, if you have a sewer connection to a building, and let's say I've got a 12-unit building, they're all 1 bedrooms, and I have a 12-unit building that are half 3 bedrooms and half 4 bedrooms. They all pay the same rate, $516 a month. But in the case of the 1 bedrooms, that means that the tenants in there are actually paying about $43 a bedroom. In the larger building, they're paying $12.29 a bedroom. And this has been a conversation. This is one of those satisfying ones. This has been a conversation that I've been having for about 10 years. And we can now see it potentially coming to fruition here in the next 3 or 4 years. Yeah, in those numbers, that means that the 1-bedroom tenant was paying about 71% more than the aggregate of the tenants in the other units. We talk in our community about affordable housing. Really, it's about available housing. You know, we've got a whole spectrum of housing. We have some housing, and we have a whole spectrum of tenants. We have tenants who are on fixed income, and that change in the multifamily is actually going to help the rental rates in those 1 bedrooms. We have some units, some buildings where I just have to look down here. 22% of the gross rent goes towards water, sewer, garbage. Those are low-priced units that there's a segment of our community that's all they can afford. So when we talk about increases, and we're talking about increases here on the average, it could be, you know, $7, $8 a month. That's a big thing. We're going to be able to offset that in some of the multifamily with recalibrating the sewer process. And so hopefully they won't see the same impact. On some of our larger buildings that are more moderate priced, you know, it's 11% of gross rents. Not net rent, gross rent. So these are real expenses for owners, they're real expenses for tenants. And when there's increases that happen here into our community, the owner has no choice but to pass those increases on. Some things I think we need to be wary of and cautious of as we go forward. And some of it's 2 or 3 years out. One of those items is our city rebate program for water conservation. When we structurally start to make a change in our community as to how we manage the sewer side, you're going to see you're going to see rate increases in particular on larger occupancy buildings, so 3 and 4 bedroom units. And it's going to shift those costs from 1 bedrooms to those 3s and 4s. And there's going to be more incentive to do water conservation, which means there's going to be more incentive to do changes. We have a project coming up this summer on a building that was built in 2020. And those all have high flow toilets in them. I haven't told this to Tyler yet. We're going to change all 96 of those this summer. Kind of in preparation because we're doing some renovations, but also in preparation for what's coming. It's going to be our test building, and we're going to be able to see what happens to consumption over a year or two with those changes. And I think that's really good information to take in. 4 buildings, 12 units each, and go through that process and see what the changes are going to be and what the consumption rates are just on the toilet perspective, let alone changing some shower heads and things of that nature. And it could be an educational item for the community. Another item I think as a community we need to look at is the security deposit requirements for rental properties. As our average cost of water, sewer, garbage goes up in our community, and we set the rates every year for items, I believe we need to continue to look at those security deposits. And some of it's a functional thing. At the end of a month, if the security deposit, we know it's not enough to take care of the average bill, that means there's going to be some trading of revenues between the property management company, the city, and the tenant. And it's always a mix on how that happens. And sometimes we're trading checks for $5. Sometimes we're trading checks for $100. But we've not adjusted that rate for 2 or 3 years, and it means we're always behind the curve on that. It'll help administratively with the city. It'll help administratively with property management. It'll actually help administratively with the tenants. So at the end of their tenancy, that they all of a sudden don't have this bill that comes back to them somehow, and they say, what? And that deposit can be properly applied to their last bill. Many of them who are leaving town. I think we also need to look at, we have a process in the city for if you have a water line leak, and there's some relief. So if you also have a water line leak in the middle of the winter out on the pipe between the building and the meter, and you've got X number of gallons and you get it fixed and you take care of it promptly, there's a way to get some relief. We don't have, as we change to a volume-based sewer, we don't have that same process. And I think we need to look at that. Because that water that was lost from that leak is not going down the sewer. It's not being processed by the system. It would seem equitable that we're able to take care of that also in that case. Again, as long as an owner or property management group is promptly taking care of the issue when it comes to the surface sometimes. We don't always read meters every month. So sometimes it's a couple of months before we actually see that. I commend the city water department on that. They're very good at looking at average flows, and I'll get a call and say, hey, we got something going on in this. Sometimes it's an outside water leak. Sometimes it's a toilet that's been running full blast in the unit for a month and the tenant hasn't said a word. It just runs. So we get into interesting situations with that. My last comment is one I don't have a good answer for at this time, but it is one that as we look for these future costs, over the next 5-year period, we're going to be increasing our water, sewer, stormwater costs probably about 28 to 30%. And that's a significant number in terms of how it impacts our community and those members, all members of the community that need to pay for that. Sometimes I think, I know inside of the city utility department, it's not always true, but sometimes as a community, we just think about it every 5 years when the rate committee comes back up. And I think we need to continue to look at that on an annual basis and see what things we can do to improve our systems, what grants are maybe available to ease some of those cost burdens. And when we receive a grant that we didn't expect, and we're looking at the capital costs, maybe we could reduce some of those capital costs and not have as much of an increase. And maybe that 28 could be down to 25 or to 24. And I think that affordability is important for our community because it actually ends up being an availability issue for individuals looking to live in our community. Sometimes they just get priced out of it and they can't, it's just not available for them. Thank you for listening and thank you for your attention tonight.
Thanks for coming and sharing, Dan.
All right, before I open up for questions, I did want to mention one of the items that I failed to mention earlier is just with the with the cemetery rate. You notice that we do have a pause, and then there's a couple years of dramatic increases. We've already been in communication with the cemetery. We have having gone through a process with some of the recent case law that's come out, it was necessary that we make sure that we're not subsidizing certain customers over others, and make sure that we do have internal equity with our rate application. Knowing that this was coming, we've had conversations with the cemetery, and actually we've encouraged the cemetery to consider getting on a well. We don't have production on that side of town. We're no longer drawing much water from the Wanapum, which is the shallow aquifer, which is something they could water out of and actually get some benefits for the cemetery and then also for the city with them off that system on that side. And that is their plan. They actually are getting close to making application. The cemetery board has approved that already. And so that's moving forward. So they don't anticipate experiencing the large rate hikes that come in that third year because their plan is to have made those transitions. So they'll still be on city water for their office building. They have a little, just their office bathroom area, but they'll go from a much larger meter down to a 5/8 meter in all likelihood just to service that. So just wanted to mention that is communication that's already happening. They're aware of that and have plans moving that forward. I do have with me tonight, in order to fill any questions you might have, our respective utility managers. We have Evan Timar with the sewer utility, Steve Schulte with the storm, and Justin Kilborn with our water utility. So we've got a crew here that certainly any question I can't answer, they'll probably be able to, and they put a lot of work into this process as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Tyler. And yeah, the last thing I was going to add, the cemetery district is a separately elected and governed taxing district for our avid audience still here and at home. So they have public meetings too, if you ever want to go attend. I don't know when they are, but questions, comments, concerns?
I've got a question.
Sage.
So, and remind me, Tyler, you briefly touched on this at the beginning of the presentation that funds for utilities kind of need to remain with utilities, but specifically water funds need to stay with water funds, sewer with sewer, et cetera, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we have to be very strict now. Now the utilities certainly do fund the support services that support the utilities. For example, there is the water utility makes a payment to the engineering department every year and to information systems for those consumed services. But we have to be able to quantify what those services are. Even, for example, there'll be a payment to the streets department for patching services to help with any patching or traffic control services that the streets department assists with. So we can pay for services, internal services that they receive, but we have to be able to document that those are going toward the delivery of that service.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. And love learning that in my first years. Evan.
Yeah, I have three things, two of which Mr. Schoenberg alluded to. The first, the projections for capital improvements and the projects assume, I think, that we will be paying for those entirely with the fee-based structure and does not assume any grants or matching funds or things like that, correct?
That's correct. It assumes cash funding of the obligations.
So as Mr. Schoenberg pointed out, I'm wondering if we do pursue matching funds or other things, if there's the mechanism already in place for reducing the cost, the likewise future cost for those capital funds.
Yeah, thank you, Council. That's a great question. There are a couple mechanisms in place for that. First, every year, the council we come to the council with the proposal in the budget. So in approving this is approving a plan, a rate study that we will then use for the building of the budgets and for forming our capital plans. But annually, we bring back a budget that reflects what's proposed in this plan to the council. So the council gets an annual opportunity to review that. And so if there's a big change in conditions, for example, in the in the sanitation utility, we did an out of turn rate study because there were conditions that had significantly changed that merited revisiting those rates and making those adjustments. And so if we have significant changes that have a big impact in the capital program, then sometimes that may merit a check-in, an update to the plan. But then at the 5-year review of this, every 5 years as we redo a full utility rate study, it would also be captured in that, because these are such long-term capital plans that if we had, a lot of the capital that we're trying to plan for is 10, 15, 20 years out. And so if we have something that we were able to get a grant for, or we ended up doing funding otherwise through debt or some other mechanism, then that will reflect in that next rate study, which would then have a downward impact or whatever impact that it has on what's proposed in the subsequent rate study. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, it does. It helps a lot. Related to that, is there a timeline for, in the sewer system for replacing our 100-year-old clay pipe? I mean, how far out are we looking at that?
Well, I mean, that's going to be a very, very long process to get it all out of the ground. But yes, we conduct routine cleaning and inspection of that system. And so we have a very good inventory. And from that inventory, our staff prioritizes replacements annually. And then that is plugged in through our CIP process as we coordinate with the engineering department and build that out. And so there's an ongoing process that takes care of that reinvestment in the system and then tries to balance that out against some of the capital and expansion needs.
And I'll talk to you more about that some other time. There's going to be some issue, and I hear about it occasionally. It came up in the rate study that perhaps we are paying less for sewer delivery services, residential, and maybe a little bit too much through multifamily and a lot of people are going to argue with that because they're going to say their sewer rates are based on their water consumption, which includes a lot of summer water use that they will say is not part of the sewer removal system, as Dan alluded to when he talked about that. And so I want to have a better answer for them. My answer has always been that excess money is really necessary for funding future capital improvements anyway. So we're going to pay it one way or another. But some people feel like it's unfair because their sewer rate is unduly influenced by their water use during irrigation season.
Well, I guess the only thing I would say to that is that single family residential does not have a consumption component to the sewer rate. And so their water consumption doesn't influence the sewer bill for single family residential. So their bill is not influenced by, for example, a single family resident who runs their sprinklers in the summer, that they only pay the water rate for that because their sewer bill is a fixed rate that is not influenced by their consumption.
All right, thank you. Third thing, and I've wondered about this because some municipalities do it, is there an advantage to us to do bi-monthly billing and reading instead of sending out monthly bills? Because a lot of these things don't change much month to month. So is there any monetary or even efficiency capture from changing that system?
I suppose that would really be a finance question that they would have to field on that. The cities historically billed monthly, and I think it's more the norm, but I know that there are utilities that bill quarterly or in a different format than that.
I think
Sure.
one of the considerations would be our transitory population and having, you could find that they would have higher past due balances that we would have to try to collect if we didn't bill on a monthly basis. Right now, we proceed with shut off if you're 45 days behind your payment. We do start the shut off process to notify to try to collect any past due utility bills. If we were billing at a less frequent period, then I think we would have the potential for much higher past due balances that we'd have to try to collect.
So any time savings maybe in billing every other month would be instead spent chasing.
And then you'll end up
That's
with
an interesting
property owners
thought.
then responsible for those past due utility bills before
Hmm.
we can reinitiate service. So I think because of our transitory nature of our community, that would be more problematic for us.
I think it deserves more thought though. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Evan. Any other questions? Bryce?
I've got just a comment because I think I asked most of my questions during the administrative committee when we had the presentations from all the respective departments. But I just wanted to say thank you to Tyler and to Brooke and to Dan for the presentations tonight. And I just want to comment on the fact of just how intentional this process is, right? And I think that that's a really important thing for us to be able to relay to the community, that this isn't just, arbitrarily decided and just kind of done pulling numbers out of a hat, but just the intentionality and the foresight that is put forth with this, I think is really impressive. So just thanks to you and the team and everybody that's collaborative on this process. So thank you. Yeah.
Love it. Any other questions, comments, remarks? Scott?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Evan, along your lines, well, I know a lot of the multifamily houses and apartments have irrigation meters, so those would not add to your sewer costs, correct?
That's right.
Right, because they're only irrigation, they won't contribute to that. That just came up, sorry. Stormwater, I know it's a new utility. Is and each single family house is equivalent single family unit that talked about in here. Was there any consideration to basing stormwater just based on area? Because a single family house that is 3,000 square feet, there's a lot different impact than a acre sized property. So, I mean, with the technology today, we heard the presentation on AI. Was there any thought that went into maybe considering just straight up area that would be your contribution to the stormwater fund?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There is an existing structure in the stormwater fund that has 3 different tiers of residential billing. So an ERU is the base that's assigned to a residential unit, but there's small residential and large residential. And so that's just the middle tier. And so any resident that feels like they're misassigned in a tier there's a process by which they can send us information and we can verify that area and they can be reassigned to a different tier. And then that tier is representative of their impact, which is premised on the impermeable surface. And, it's a resolution question because, we don't have it dialed into, X number of cents per square foot because that would just be untenable, but it has different, blocks, different ranges that they fall within. Yep.
Okay. Do we currently require a security deposit for utilities when people get hooked up?
Mm-hmm.
We currently do. Sorry, I haven't done this in like a long time. So I was just curious. The only thing that I worry about with security deposits and increasing them, I understand the need for it, is just the more we increase the barrier for people to be able to attain housing, I think we have to be cautious of that, because if we just keep piling them on, it can make it very challenging for people to get in, because there's security deposits for rent first and last. They start piling on. So it's just a very small part of it, but I would think we just have to be careful on that one. I think those are my only ones. The other ones I think were answered.
Okay, excellent. Any thoughts, feelings, discussion?
I'll chime in.
Sage,
Just,
sure.
To say thanks again to FCS and all your hard work on this. And like you mentioned, it was fun to, in your words, be baptized into that process. Not knowing, kind of all the conversation and people invited from various sectors of the community to participate in this. And you get so much feedback and information on kind of the various routes that this can all go and how that can impact, consumers' billing at the end for years to come. So it was good to see all that and participate in that admittedly very overwhelming information, but also very
It is a lot.
So yeah, appreciate the opportunity to participate in that. And thanks again for coming before us with all this stuff.
Yeah, welcome.
Seems like you feel moved in some type of way, Sage. if you want to be.
I think I do. I will. I move to approve the 2025 water, sewer, and stormwater utility rate study
Great.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion from Sage, second from Bryce. Any further commentary?
Just one quick commentary. I just want to say that I'm in favor, and it makes my stomach clench anytime I think about raising rates on anything, because I feel like, man, it's gonna be hard for me to afford it. If it's hard for me to afford anything, then it's gonna be really hard for anyone else to afford anything. And I mean, working with student populations, and I work with a lot of senior populations, and it's hard, right? And I just wouldn't want anyone to think that this is a light decision made. I'm really grateful for the reports from a variety of people that gave them. It eases my conscience a lot when I look at, I was a part of this a few years ago, and that was all the learning experience. I felt like I was like in a weird Xanadu place. I'm like, I don't really know what you're talking about, but I know I'm learning a lot, right? And then it kind of settled down, and I'm grateful for that. But it's hard. And I don't want to make things harder for people. And yet that's what we're doing, right? Harder for us as well. And it's just not, we're going to come up here and I'm going to guess that it's probably going to be, we'll all vote the same. Maybe someone will be different, but pretty much the same. It's not easy. And I am grateful for the work that went into it and the presentations to make this explainable to our constituents and explainable to my mother and explainable to my aunt and uncle and my cousins and all the other folks that live here. So I support it, but I just wanted to add that because I know that everyone up here doesn't do this lightly. This is a hard thing to do. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Balancing the long time obligation to provide services to our community with knowing that our friends and neighbors are literally paying the bill is, we love it. We love. And
Sorry.
one last comment,
Sorry.
Scott, before I call for the vote.
It made me think of something. I do appreciate we are taking into account the full capital improvements, because we don't want to get stuck thinking we're going to get something and all of a sudden our wastewater facility goes down because we were hoping to get a grant and something falls through. I mean, we still have the opportunity, if we get grants and other things, that we can make those adjustments year to year and say, hey, geez, we just saved $20 million here. We can provide that at a future date. So I do think it's important we see communities around us that take some things for granted. And I appreciate that we are planning, we're being responsible, and that we still have that flexibility in the future to adjust if we need to.
Love it. So with that, Scott.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
And Sage.
Aye.
Beautiful. Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for approving as
Thanks, Tyler.
presented. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks,
Thanks,
Brooke.
everybody.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, crew. We love it. Swift reports. We're good with
Yes.
Swift reports.
I like Swift.
Swift reports. So this is our chance for anyone who is for our council members. Thanks for coming, Courtney. For providing reports for the commissions and boards that we are either appointed or liaise to in our official city capacity. I will start with Bryce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I will run through swiftly as possible here. Going back to mid-March when I was absent, I would just want to thank those that filled in for me on a couple of assignments when I was back in Kansas visiting my family. So I'm grateful for that. So thank you. And then working kind of backwards to that, a couple of Mondays ago, we had admin committee. A lot of the things that we saw tonight, we saw there. Later in the middle of that week, we had council leadership. And then last Wednesday on April 1st, I did attend at 7 a.m. the city county school board university breakfast. And then that evening, all of us showed up and we're happy to participate in Town and Gown, which is our biannual meet and greet and conversation with the ASUI, so the Associated Students of the University of Idaho, and the student government that leads the university there. And this past Saturday, I went to the Energy Efficiency and Electrification Fair held out at the Latah County Fairgrounds. And while I was there, for the time that I was there, there seemed to be a really nice turnout. Energy was good. That's a funny pun. And I was happy to see that it was gaining some traction. I have other non-official things that I was going to mention, but for the sake of brevity, the only thing that I will mention, and I'm pretty excited about this, I was asked, and I think many of you know up here and in the audience, that I still currently even moonlight as a bartender, predominantly at a place over in Pullman. But I was asked to bartend tomorrow at Nectar because it is their 20th anniversary.
Happy birthday, Nick.
So if you're looking for something to do and if you want to see a city councilor shake some cocktails, Nectar, I will be there. I will be there all afternoon. And I was proud to work there from 2012 through the middle of 2016. So I've put in some years there. Really proud of Brett and Nikki for creating this space for the community, and really impressed by their 2 decades of serving great food and great drinks. So swing by if you've got the time and the interest.
Meatloaf's out of this world. Sandra, what do you have?
I will also try to be quick. Historic preservation, exciting because they are narrowing in on the University of Idaho Historic District. We had a little bit of scared, not knowing if we'd had SHPO or not, but still a little nervous, but it looks like we might be okay. And then also looking at getting one more sign put up around Friendship Square. Gosh, for the last 10, 11, 12 years, we've tried to put up a sign every 3 or 4 years that represents some part of the town. It was the 1912 Center and the library, and now we have one coming up. Not quite exactly sure. We're still working on that at Friendship Square, but it's fun to see that progressing, and it's gonna, they all enhance. I will also go quickly through the other things. I'm chagrined. I am confessing. I wrote down the wrong day for Mira.
Oh no.
And I was out delivering food when I got a text from Bill saying, "Are you coming?" I'm like, "No, oh no." And I looked and I had the wrong date. So I apologize for that. I do know there are exciting things going on there.
We'll make
Embarrassed
Drew
to have missed that. I'm very sorry.
We'll make Drew give the update.
Thank you. On Saturday, I went to the powwow, and it was great to see it in the arena. Met some really great people and had some really interesting and fun discussions. Learned a really cool thing about 3D printing with plastics that are biodegradable once you put them in a compost pit. So
cool.
Didn't expect to have that happen. I also want to give a plug. Ren Fair's coming up. And we have Suds with a Scholar coming up at Hunga Dunga. I'm going to have you all look up the date because you have to actually register for it this year. So go to the Historical Society site and sign up for Suds with a Scholar. It's one of our premier events. We try to do it 3 or 4 times a year. Someone talks about a really cool, interesting subject, and you can get to eat and drink and become more knowledgeable, which is one of my favorite things. And then just a post. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Love it.
So
Love it.
thanks all.
Love it. Sage, what do you have?
I'm going to be very brief. I don't have any updates because neither of my commissions had meetings. Human Rights Commission
Spring break
had their meeting off as they couldn't reach
quorum.
and P&Z also was canceled. So
Wow.
yeah, no updates.
Quiet second half of March. Love it. Evan, what do you have?
Oh, I will mention something that Human Rights Commission sponsored, and that's the Immigration Rights Forum was conducted March 24th. 3 U of I
yes.
third year students, and they are available for more consultations if you contact them through the law school. Also on that day, on March 24th, Sustainable Environment Commission met. They will next meet on April 21st at 6 p.m. in this building, but covered a lot of territory there, including the EEE fair that Bryce mentioned, but they have a letter coming to council in support of community solar. They'd like us to get started on that. They have a letter coming to us to support a new water conservation plan. That's an amalgamation of a lot of directives that council has given staff over the years, but it's been consolidated into one plan. So that'll be exciting to see. They have their Earth Day Award nominations, which
In
you
my
probably
inbox,
have
yeah.
seen. And so they have been busy. Fair and Affordable Housing met on April 2nd, so just last Thursday, and they'll next meet May 14th, and it's a week later than normal because of the need to meet people's schedules. But they have they're prepping for the Fair Housing Workshop, which is April 22nd of this month, Fair Housing Month, where there'll be presentations and workshops to deal with changes or maybe first knowledge about fair housing practices in Idaho. We also had a presentation there from Hills and Rivers Housing Trust Director Nils Peterson about a lot of things that affect affordability of housing or methodology of housing that have been done in neighboring states. So he brought some things forward for us to think about and consider. Also, I'd like to mention outside of, well, Tree Commission meets tomorrow in this building, and their previous meeting and tomorrow's meeting will be about Arbor Day. So we already heard about through the proclamation, they've been busy with that. I'd also like to mention that the Palouse Region study for traffic on US 95 and State Highway 8 is still available online. It's stage 2 of the screening process, but the public can still get on there, review the whole thing, make their comments, and through April 9th. So please do that. It's a very in-depth study that considers a lot of possibilities that will affect traffic through Moscow. The only other thing I want to do is give a shout out to Sam Martinet, who has left Chamber of Commerce and for 5 years really did a good job managing the downtown association and interfacing with Farmers Market and Art Walk and really making that collaboration between the city and Chamber of Commerce work very well. And so we'll miss her, but looking forward to her replacement, who will be hired soon. Thank you much.
Yeah. Scott, what do you have?
A few things. Parks and Rec, I'll be very quick. They're going to have a couple days, one for Parks and one for the Rec Department tabling at Farmers Market. We're still waiting to finalize the days, but they're working on that if you have questions on either of those things. I'm actually excited. We're going to do an annual tour of the parks, which I've lived here for a very, very long time, but some of the parks I have not been to in a long time. So it'll be very interesting to see and just kind of take an inventory of where we're at. April 1st, the swim and summer camps, I believe, came out and they are active. So kiddos, get them signed up. I always waited till it was like the last minute. So Hoopapalooza is a 3-on-3 tournament that they are doing on April 25th. It's a Saturday, kind of get everybody prepped up for Hoop Fest. It's first of hopefully an annual event. 25th.
You sound really confident.
It said
Saturday, whatever that
it
Saturday.
said 25th on my quick Google search on my phone.
That's
So
Saturday.
Yeah, whatever that
trust
Saturday is.
the research. And then with the arts department, there's a handful of some art things around that they are submitting for. Sorry,
Call for artists and
and they're putting together some designs and things for the shop artwork, as well as some of the other things that are open and that they could be submitted to. So they are very busy. It is probably the busiest commission I feel like that I've been a part of. So they are working a lot on that. So those are kind of the biggest things.
Cool.
That's all I have.
I will try to also be quick. I was absent from our last full council meeting. I was in Washington, D.C. with the Pullman mayor, Francis Benjamin, and we were there for two reasons. We Mayor Benjamin and I co-chair the Moscow Pullman Regional Airport Board. He'll call it Pullman Moscow. I'll call it Moscow Pullman. And so we go every year in the spring to visit with our congressional officers. And we were able to meet with all of our, both Washington senators, both Idaho senators, and our District 5 congressional representative on the Washington side, Representative Michael Baumgartner, and then on the Idaho side, Representative Russ Fulcher. And we are very lucky. We are a unicorn scenario that has by state, by university, by county, by city, down the list, coordination across two states that don't always see eye to eye. So it was fun to kind of give a good update and talk about those exciting things. We also had the airport board meeting last Wednesday. The speed dating process that that airports have to go through to kind of shop and curry favor with air service providers had just happened a week or two prior, and it sounds like the conversation is still focused on Salt Lake, Denver, and Portland has somehow kind of made an appearance. But there's a lot of machinations. The airport world and airline world is very interesting. It's a controlled monopoly, and it's been very fascinating to learn about. But luckily for DC, it was just like warm fuzzies by and large. The other thing I was going to share is we were there to also touch base with our congressional officers and thank them for their support in our build application. Can't remember the acronym for build, but that is the grant process, the federal grant process that we applied to with Whitman County for the Sand Road Kirkendall Freight, not bypass, alternative route. So, and we'll see, we will know, I think in the next 6-ish weeks, what that may look like. We were also there in the midst of, they had other things on their mind, but the staff has always, the staff that we work with are always great. Town and Gown, shout out to ASUI and Shay and the crew who are getting ready to graduate. Shay and Bryant, who are the president and vice president, have been great to work with the past year. I spent 3 hours with Chief Nickerson going through all of our facilities, our fire facilities, which was a lot of fun. And I did not get to use the fire pole at the station on Main Street because we have very strict rules about that. I did ask, and no special treatment, which I'm okay with. I don't want special treatment. He said if I join as a volunteer, that's when I get to use it. I was like, that might be, actually, maybe that's what we need to market a little better, is if you sign up as a volunteer, you get to go down the pole. I attended the chamber luncheon on the third Wednesday in March. The Latah County Sheriff's Department hosted, and so I attended. And there was an update on the jail, a video tour, and we are where we are. We're going to see what happens. I would say that the ask was not super clear from the county and Sheriff's Department what we were supposed to do with that information. So there's that. I'm just going to leave that there. Been very active with Smart Transit. They do have a free airport shuttle service right now that they're piloting that started on April 1st. If you need a ride to or from the Moscow Pullman Regional Airport, please call them. It was real. I know. We joked about it. And to your comment, Scott, about you said swim details are posted. We do have a scholarship program. It is available on our website. Please, if you know of anyone, money should never be a hurdle to getting kids swim lessons. I'm really passionate about that. So it's there. It is community funded, and it's important that we use it as a resource. The last thing that Drew asked me to flag was May 11th, I think, is our penciled in next council workshop.
23rd.
Yep. I had a great, that was thank you. No, I think I had a dummy holder on the 11th. 26th, does that sound right? Yes, the official one, May 26th. So that'll be the Tuesday, thank you, Bill, after Memorial Day. So, and it'll be, again, those workshops are open to the public. That will be reviewing the last thing. The Idaho legislature has passed a number of bills that we will need to figure out how we will implement them. It will involve some revisions for us in terms of our code. And so May 11th will be focused primarily on our housing. Dang it. May 26th. It's because I wrote 11 here, so let me just turn that into a 2 and a 6. May 26th will be primarily focused on a housing conversation, as well as whatever code changes we will need to make to become compliant with state code. So with that, anything from staff?
Nothing from staff.
Groovy. Okay, I can't just adjourn it. Sorry.
I move we do so.
Thanks, Sandra. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Sage. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.